on this week's edition of Walt's Way. Places like this are part of the leftover growl of the Roaring '20s. Movies were king in those days, so they needed castles in which to be shown. And Temple Theatre in Meridian sure fit the bill. But actually, the theater wasn't made necessarily for showing movies at all. When the Hamasa Shrine decided to relocate from cramped quarters across town, they wanted something like this to move into for their ceremonies. But it was impractical to build until they discovered the Sanger Theater people of New Orleans might be interested in leasing the theater portion of their new building from them. And with a steady source of funds, plans for the building could not only proceed, but proceed in the opulent style the Shriners wanted.
Well, Sanger came in and said, if you'll build the building, we will come in and manage it. Well, they did. But the Shrine said we needed to have this in what we call the Moorish style, because we'd wanted to hold ceremonials here. And that was one of the things in the contract.
According to Benny Egler there, the manager of the theater, the deal was struck, and it was a happy partnership until the 1970s, when single-screen walk-in movie houses started falling by the wayside. But much of what was here back in the 1920s is still here. Even the pipe organ, installed to play along with the silent films, is in fine operating condition after being adopted by a group of local theater buffs. Frank Evans says it's a labor of love, mostly.
We have a group of about 7 of us that try to keep the old girl going. The organ was built in 1927 by the Robert Morton Organ Company in Van Nuys, California. They were the second largest producers of theater organs back in the time of the silent movies, Wurlitzer being number 1. And it was shipped to Meridian, and it was installed in the very early part of 1928 by an organ man named Roy Gimple. Roy was under contract to the Sanger chain, and he worked for the Robert Morton Organ Company. The organ was used to provide accompaniment to silent movies, background effects and sound effects, things of that nature. And then, of course, later on, there were some broadcasts played here during the afternoon shows on the local radio stations. And then the organ really fell into disuse. There was no need for silent movie accompaniments, obviously, after the sound movies came along. So there had been a couple efforts to make it play again. The Sanger chain was under obligation to keep the organ and at least keep it from damage while they had the lease on the theater. And as I say, we started in 1972. We took the console out, repainted it, did a lot of rebuilding on it. We rebuilt the instrument. But we've had problems with air conditioning leaks and water and things of that nature, so it's been an ongoing labor, a constant labor.
This is not a museum. A museum is called a dead theater. This is a live theater, meaning we constantly have things going on. We're trying to improve. We're trying to do upkeep of the building. We're trying to make it look as it did back when it was first built. We're working on doing some improvements of this nature. So we feel that we've got one of the best theaters in the country, and we hope that people will enjoy coming to be with us here at the Temple Theatre in Meridian.
And although the theater is not a museum, there are museum-quality pieces here. The hand-painted drop, one of 2 still at the temple, was created as a city scene backdrop for plays and live acts back in the 20s. And it gives us a snapshot of what the artists considered town life to be back then. A furniture store and an auto supply store right there on Main Street, along with the trolley, downtown apartments, and the theater up front in the center of attention. The Hamasa Shrine Temple Theatre in Meridian, although specifically built as a Moorish setting needed for the Shriners' activities, it also filled the bill for the lavish movie theaters of the day. A palace, the king of entertainment, the motion picture, and where patrons could come and sit and feel like royalty. Well, that's going to wrap us up for this week. But we thought we would leave you with the view from up top. This is the observation tower